Welcome to the Godzilla podcast, where Joe and I scream in each other's ears, apparently.
Okay.
I'm Drew.
Is this too loud for you?
No, I'm good.
Okay, all right. I am Joe.
And as I already stated, I'm Drew. We are the Godzilla podcast.
You nervous, Drew?
We provide... No, I've just drank a lot of Monster.
Oh, okay.
We provide commentary and / podcasts over the Godzilla films, and currently we are on the 8th Godzilla film released in 1967 in Japan, titled Son of Godzilla. So that what that means, what our podcast is all about, is you can watch this as a commentary track over the movie itself, as in you can hover over that play button or on your game controller, whatever you're using to watch this film. Sadly, this film, Joe, it's not widely available.
No, it is not. In fact, you got a version from a certain website that we're iffy about.
We don't.
Although they have provided us with great material.
Oh yes, multiple DVDs thus far. They are Sumo Gorilla. We do not endorse Sumo Gorilla, and here is a.
You know, it's funny.
Yeah.
I think on Sumo Gorilla's site, I think it says "Don't advertise us."
Sumo Gorilla.
Yeah.
But what it says is there's a little sticker that came in this copy of Son of Godzilla. Master print used for this transfer came from international sources, a private collector, or is in public domain. This film has not, all in caps, not been domestically released or is currently unreleased in this version. Again, in capitals, no laws have been broken.
Well, you know, if someone doesn't have the distribution rights for a certain region, I honestly don't know if bootlegging is legal.
It's super gray. All I'm saying is ethically, like
Probably
maybe
not,
no international laws were broken here, but ethically, they're infinitely reproducing copies of something which an artist, you know, or of a film studio provided.
It doesn't matter, man. If they wanted to make money off of us, someone would have released it.
And this is one that, I mean, we'll get to our opinions on it.
Kept
and the
it
facts.
in print, because there is a DVD that's out of print.
So the reason I'm going about telling you about this is because the last two films, at least, and most of the ones we've done thus far, are widely available via digital rentals. So you can get those for $2.99, $3.99, and you can watch those along with our commentary. This one, however, not so much.
No.
So
How much was the used DVD on Amazon?
Okay, about a month ago when I looked for it,
For the English edition.
The English edition.
Yeah.
So this DVD, along with a few others, such as Terror of Mechagodzilla, Godzilla vs. Gigan, ones of this era, they were all released in these bundles in 2004 by TriStar. They've been out of print for a long time, and they are fetching prices of, when I looked a month ago, about $90 for the one DVD. When I checked about a week ago, it had went down to $70, but I'm guessing they fluctuate. And you know, my Terror of Mechagodzilla, which I have in that TriStar release, is worth $90. So I'm like, oh, I mean, I'm keeping it because I actually like that film. But if I had Son of Godzilla, I'd probably sell it for $90.
Oh, what are you saying, Drew? Are you saying you don't like this movie?
We'll talk about it. I don't dislike. I don't like
right.
it. But yeah.
So I do want to clarify something on this podcast. I kept on saying that the movie that I had remembered as a child was Son of Godzilla. That was the most terrible Godzilla movie I have ever seen. Now, in this run, that may or may not be true, but the movie that I saw as a child was not this film. Although it did have Minera or Manila or
Minya or
Minya or whatever the freak his name is, the son of Godzilla, Mini Godzilla.
What is the movie that you were referring to?
I think it was Godzilla vs. Gigan.
No, you're thinking of All Monsters Attack.
All Monsters Attack.
Or Godzilla's Revenge. Same film, different names.
Okay.
But that's going to be...
Oh, yeah, it was totally Godzilla's Revenge because I got notes about that.
That is the... I mean, we'll get into that one later, but that's the PSA film, an entire film about anti-bullying.
Yeah, and... yeah, we'll get into that. Let's I don't know, Schweiss, or not Schweiss. I've been talking to Caleb Schweiss
all day long.
All day long.
Well, here's your break from Schweiss.
This is my break from Schweiss. It's funny, like, me and Caleb, I guess in reality, we do spend a lot of time together, but it's all in one day, and it's really intense.
They are one and the same. They have morphed into one being.
Some of you Godzilla listeners, because some of you guys don't come from our other podcasts, I host the Nude Clan podcast, Ultimate Final Fantasy, the Ultimate Final Fantasy podcast.
Oh, yeah.
And this podcast.
The
and
Godzilla
recently
podcast.
a podcast about my short film, Emmanuel's Song, which we just launched an Indiegogo campaign. So if you want to help out a young filmmaker, it's emmanuelssong.com. Emmanuel with an I, by the way.
Yeah, and Joe is a budding young filmmaker. He's a man with talent.
Yeah.
And go and support him. Joe is a podcaster through and through, and he has proven that over the years. So I believe I didn't explain it, actually.
I can talk for a long time.
That's what you do all day.
Yes.
One day a week. I believe I didn't explain it fully. What we do is we hover over this play button, we push play at the same time as you, and you can watch it with us. Again, you're not going to have so much luck in getting a hold of this one. I mean, I don't endorse it, but Sumo Gorilla does have it, and it's really hard to come by. We're watching the Japanese version, uncut, which we got from Sumo Gorilla. That same $90 DVD is going to be the exact same footage. It's the international...
At least that's what we've read.
Yeah, it's the international release that Toho dubbed themselves, and so you can follow along with that as well if you feel like paying a hefty price for a mediocre film. But there you go.
Ouch.
Yeah. Well,
all right.
The truth hurts.
So, Drew,
we have 2 reviews, and
let's get to them at the end of the show.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So
hover over that play button there, Drewsker. Drewsker.
The coffee's affecting you, I can tell.
Yeah.
All right. So I'm going to push play in 3, 2, and on 1. Go.
Oh boy. So neither of us have seen this movie before we watched it for this.
No, and I remember it was either our first or second podcast. We were just like, I've never looked forward to this episode, Joe.
I thought it was a much worse movie.
No. This
than
film
this was.
is okay. It's not bad.
I walked away and I was like, I can live with this.
Exactly. And it's just not of note in any way to me. There's nothing that like... Yeah.
That airplane shot through the clouds is pretty cool. So I'll take a note on that.
Well, who's our special effects guy in this one?
Our special effects guy is Sadamasa Arikawa, supervised by Eiji Tsuburaya. So I think on this film as well, Eiji Tsuburaya has his name on it, but he's not actually the one who is going to be daily on the special effects set.
And he was certainly more involved in the last one because he's been stepping away. Ooh, Godzilla's eyes in this.
We'll get to that.
Yes, we will. Godzilla's just made his first appearance here, and so I believe Eiji Tsuburaya, especially in these last 2 films, has really been stepping away from Godzilla.
He's busy on his television show, man.
Exactly. 1966, he founded Tsuburaya Productions and started... I don't know because I'm not that familiar with Tsuburaya Productions, but I believe they started out with Ultraman, and that's still going today. At least it was a very early show that they created.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
Man, the Japanese love to serialize things. This is just one example.
Oh, yeah. I mean...
the Toro-san movies, there's like a million of, and I think we talked about that on a previous episode of the Godzilla podcast. And
yeah.
Ultraman has been around forever. How many versions of Power Rangers has there been just since, they probably started that in the 80s, right?
No, 70. Over in Japan, 70s. The one that was adapted here in America was late 80s, 90s.
It looked 80s, so I just assumed.
Well, I mean, there are like... I want to say 10-ish seasons of Power Rangers that came before the one we got here in America that was translated over. But anyway, so there is small differences, Joe, though, in the version that was released. Same with Ibira. It came over here 2 years later. Mm-hmm. So 67, Son of Godzilla released in Japan. 69, we get it released here in America. That was not the Toho international release.
That's not the one you can easily find, yeah.
No, not nowadays.
Or I say easily.
Yeah, easily.
If you got $90, it's pretty easy, right?
Easy to find, hard to come by price-wise if you want to drop some dollar bills. But so there was a difference. From what I've read, the differences weren't so much in there's about 3 minutes cut in the English version.
That's not bad for these films.
Oh, no, not at all. And really, there isn't much of a difference at all. They based the dubbing script off of the Toho's international dub. That's why, I mean, we'll see these creatures show up, but they share a lot of the names, the English names for the giant monsters that first appear in these films are similar. differences in names between the Japanese version and the American versions. They correlate between the Toho dub and the English one. Really, the one that was released by the Walter Reed organization in '69 to American televisions, they just cut out the opening. I mean, that was about it. They cut out, which would have cut 1.5 to 2 minutes. And then I'm sure they...
And we don't even know if that one's available anywhere, do we?
What it said was
the
that
television one.
In '92, it was released on VHS, and for 30 years, that's what was known here in America. Was that? Right. So it was distributed a lot here. I don't know. To television, it was distributed a lot, but I don't know that there was a lot of like home format releases. To go along with the giveaways in the future, we may be giving away that version. We'll have to see.
So this movie had a budget of $900,000, which is markedly lower than the previous Godzilla films.
Except for the very last one, because Abira and this one were both their lower budgeted.
Yeah.
Slightly lower budgeted.
Yeah. And they were directed... This one was directed once again by Jun Fukuda, which we talked about a lot last time.
Oh, yeah. And you and I both really appreciate him as a...
I do. I felt like he brought in a lot of new... Him and probably our new special effects director, Sadamasa. I think they both brought in a new visual flair to the Godzilla films that... Ishiro Honda, as much as I love him and respect him, especially with that first Godzilla movie, as a filmmaker, absolutely. I respect his objective camera and
he's a master.
The quiet sort of horror that we saw there. But as he was put to work on these, kind of, I would say, I don't want to say cash grab, but they're the sequels.
Yeah, the sequelization.
When he got to work on the sequels, it felt like it was getting tired, and I didn't even know it until Jun Fukuda showed up.
Yeah,
and it's like, oh no, we got a different director here with a totally different vision about how these movies should look and feel. And it's not just the screenwriter, but I mean visually. And another reason we see the stark differences between all the prior Godzilla films and these last two is that it's a recurring crew behind the set, behind the camera, between these two films. You already mentioned Jun Fukuda is the director of both Abira, Horror of the Deep, and Son of Godzilla, but also we have a recurring composer in Masaru Sato.
Yes, and then we have recurring screenwriter in Shinichi Sekizawa.
Who also worked with a guy who I couldn't find any information of named Kazue Shiba.
Yeah.
Who apparently co-wrote this, or at least wrote a draft on it. I'm not sure how credits work in Japanese film, but
since we're here already, Joe, with the screenwriter, I feel we should mention Shinichi Sekizawa had been saying for 3 to 4 films prior to this. At this point, I'm running out of ideas, guys. I'm running out of ideas, and they just keep throwing stuff at me.
I couldn't tell.
Prior to that. Well, as much as Joe and I
How about
are appreciative,
a giant shrimp.
Yeah. Well, that actually was another film. They just recycled that. As much as we appreciated, say, Astro Monster, it kind of shows in that Honda. That was the last.
Oh yeah, you're reaching. You're like, we can't get anything else here on Earth.
That Honda had. Let's shoot for the stars.
Let's shoot for the stars, baby.
That Honda had already done space operas, and then they're like, I've done that. Let's add Godzilla to it. But what we're getting at is that really, to this film, he was like, guys, I'm out of ideas. And Jun Fukuda, I read it in some sources, he heartily agreed that they'd run out of ideas. Then comes in Tomoyuki Tanaka, the producer of all of these films. He's the guy that's always been here, even when Honda's not present. Or
I think he might have. I think he had the original idea of Godzilla.
Oh, he was one of the progenitors of the Godzilla idea, and he was highly involved in the creation of the first Godzilla film. So for that, respect. For much of what he's done for the Godzilla franchise, respect. For what he did here, though...
What are you saying, Drew?
No respect, man. It's minus respect. It's negative, because what Tomoyuki Tanaka did.
I just call him Tanaka.
I'm just going to call him Tanaka as well. What he did is, Shinichi Sekizawa. Sekizawa was like, I'm out of ideas, like, for real this time, guys. Jun Fukuda said, we are out of ideas for Godzilla films. Tomoyuki Tanaka came to him and said, a son. Son of Godzilla. It was to mark the New Year's. It was just kind of what he said was not so much to gear them to a children, like to change the series to gear it towards kids, which many people call it that. Rather, just a new direction for the series, and obviously a more comical one.
Well, I remember that Shinichi Sekizawa was the one who kind of wanted it to start gearing towards kids. At least that's what it seemed like when we were reading up on Astro Monster.
If not gearing it more towards kids, he's the one who writes more lighthearted Godzilla films.
Yeah,
so he goes less for the darker, serious tones. So yeah.
But it is Tanaka. Tanaka's idea was Mini Godzilla or Minida.
And you gotta think of his position as a producer. He's the moneymaker. He's the guy that's behind these films, pushing them to make the studio money. But you're right. And speaking of which, again, that name Minera, that was a joke at first, and then they were like, oh, that should be his name because he's a mini Gojira. So no, we are not using a racist accent on Manila to say Minera. But no, that's what I'm going to call him mostly.
It's. I think that's how it would be pronounced. Maybe my stresses might be on the wrong syllables, but it's
all about those stresses, man.
Yeah, you never know until you hear it. Frankly, where they go.
That already harks on one point, Joe. We were called out by somebody on our website. Just one point, as he said, we were saying abira wrong, which I on purpose just said a beer. You know, with a beer, abira. It's ebira. Ebera, yeah. I mean, you did it better than me, but you know, when you're speaking English, American English, and then you got to throw in one word with a different pronunciation in the middle, like Ebera.
So this is our first big insect that we see in this film.
Yeah. Do you remember Rodan with the No, these are Kamacuras. Maganulus.
Do you mean the big worm things?
Big worm with pincers. Yeah. So this is like American horror of the same period.
Something similar, yeah. Giant bugs, right?
For some reason, American
Attack
cinemas,
of the Giant Gila Monster.
That was what, yeah. I mean, all they do is
Attack of the Giant
superimposed
50-foot woman.
Gila Monster. Dude, we're going to talk 50-foot woman because there should, by all rights, be a 50-foot woman in this movie.
Oh, yeah.
And the 50-foot man.
Yeah, there is nothing scarier than a praying mantis, I guess.
Yeah, especially one that's heavily shadowed behind those trees.
You know, in Sir Arthur Conan Doyle's The Lost World, which was I think it was early 1900s novel, and it was made into one of the first dinosaur pictures ever, called The Lost World, and we talked about it once.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of goes hand in hand with these Godzilla films.
There is a part in both the book and the film where it's dark at night in the camp, and they just see eyes moving through the trees, which is the eyes of I believe an Allosaurus. I read it as a kid. It's been a long time since I read it.
Nice.
And then they, shoot at the monster, and then they scare the monster away. In the book, I think they just scare him away with the shooting, and then in the movie, the guy takes like a big piece of wood that's on fire from their campfire, and then, and then the dinosaur goes and fetches it, which they totally did in Jurassic Park.
Yeah,
in 1993.
Okay.
So when Jeff Goldblum gets out of the car and he's got the strikers come this way, and then he throws it towards the lawyer, and then the lawyer dies.
Well, I mean, it didn't.
He's trying to get it away from the kids, but yeah, that's what happens in Jurassic Park. This the scene with the praying mantis, the giant praying mantis outside of their camp,
the Gigantus.
It reminded me of that scene, and I think that might just be now, ever since it started in The Lost World, or it might have started before then, I don't know. It seems almost like a monster movie cliche. We're in camp and we see eyes, and then something, it's creepy, and that's where kind of the monster stuff begins.
Well, yeah, we got to think that
it's all a linear progression. That's what I feel like.
It builds upon itself. Yeah. That makes total sense. You have to think that if you're one to be writing films of this archetype, really a monster film.
I totally thought that girl was naked when she was swimming in the first shot.
So did we.
And then
so
I was
did
like, dang it.
Dang it. In a Godzilla film in the 60s that's geared towards children.
Well,
swimming.
I mean, in Japan, I think they're okay with like nudity, in at least in their hot springs, right? Or
Oh yeah, but I mean, on film, I don't know.
well, at least that's what I've heard. I don't know. I guess I'm not.
But we have yet to mention it, Joe. Oh, it's getting hot in here.
Yeah, I just took off my shirt because it's like 1,000,000 degrees in here, despite it being fall.
Don't all the ladies wish this was a visual? All right.
No, frankly.
We failed to mention, Joe, from who we dubbed the Superman Clark Kent of these films. I have his name as well. He is
Kenji Sahara?
Yeah, he's the nosy reporter in this film.
Mario?
We saw him first in Astro Monster. He was the inventor of the lady alarm, and he was always wearing these rimmed glasses in the film. And Joe pointed out that guy is a stud.
Okay,
He's a handsome man.
look, he's got a super chiseled face.
Oh yes.
He's incredibly symmetrical, and all I can tell now, I mean, it's hard for me as a straight man to tell and believe. Some people, when you say that, don't believe you. Like they're like, "Come on, you got to know," and it's like, no, they got to be like George Clooney before I know that they're a good-looking guy.
Yeah.
I can tell this man is at least very defined. His features are very defined, and he looked to me like a Japanese Clark Kent. Like he's the super handsome brunette man.
That is how I will always remember that actor in these films. He is the Japanese Clark Kent.
So let me tell you about Kenji Sahara, and just double check and make sure I have the right name here.
Yeah,
Kenji Sahara. He was born on May 14th in 1932, and he's still alive, by the way. He's 84 years old as we're speaking.
Wow.
In Kawasaki City in Kanagawa Prefecture in Japan.
Yeah.
His real name, that's a stage name, by the way. His real name is Masayoshi Kato, and his first stage name was Tadashi Ishihara, but he changed it for his for a lead role in Rodan. I guess we saw him in Rodan at some point.
I bet it was the same thing with Takarada, that he just looks different. Like really, so another recurring actor in this film from previous Godzilla films is Akihiko Hirata.
Harada, yeah.
And you know what? I was thinking about
Dr. Serizawa, if anybody's confused.
Hirata, he has not changed. Like his face, he looks the same. He is timeless.
Dude, he is not aged.
Yeah, no, not a bit.
No, it's good 12 years on from that first movie.
He is timeless. Takarada changed a lot. He was the lead in the last film, and he was the lead in the original Godzilla, and his face has changed quite a bit. I mean, you can tell it's him, but Hirata is like, ageless.
He's just aged like a man. He's got more fat on his face. That's what happens.
You're saying Takarada?
Yeah.
Okay, because Hirata has always been quite a
Hirata
gaunt
is like a very gaunt, skinny man.
Yeah. You know.
So this guy, this Kenji Sahara guy, he has appeared in more Godzilla movies than any other actor.
Really?
Including Akira Takarada. Which I thought was probably the one who appeared in it most, but apparently this guy has, and before he was a favorite of both Ishiro Honda and Tsuburaya. They both used him in their film. Ishiro Honda used him in his film stuff, and Tsuburaya apparently used him a lot in his television stuff.
Just from his screen presence, he seems to be super agreeable. Like, he looks like he would just be great to get along. I don't know, because I've never heard anything about him behind the scenes, but like, he's just so amiable with all the other actors, and he's good.
Are you saying the image that he just projects?
Yes, his aura.
Oh, that's very interesting.
No, he seems to be competent, acting both comedically and heroically. And so, I can see why they'd want to reuse him.
And believe it or not, his first appearance ever was as like a background guy in the first Godzilla.
Oh, so he was a background guy.
Yeah, he was. And he like moved his way up and changed his name a couple times.
Yeah, you got to do that in the biz, man.
Yeah, I guess. I know Cary Grant did that. I can't remember what his real name is with Cary Grant, but it is like off-putting when you hear what Cary Grant's real name is.
So this shot right here, Joe, it was filmed in Guam.
Yeah, a lot of the movie was filmed in Guam.
For budgetary reasons again.
Which is odd. Let's move our entire film crew to Guam, and it'll be cheaper than shooting here in Tokyo.
Then making a lot of miniatures and sets, I believe.
Yeah, let's just the unions. Oh, the unions!
The reason it may have been cheaper as well, Joe, is I want to say because that fact was a lot easier to come across for this film that it was Guam, but I came across whatever Asian territory, island, whatever they used to film as an actual locale for Ibira, and I want to say it was Guam as well, but I found that like digging deep, and I was never able to find it again after I found it that one time. So possibly what they did was do the two films, probably not side by side, but if you're going to use Guam, if you're going to use a real locale, they probably filmed a lot of it similarly. You know, they had like a setup there. So I can see it being cheaper, and also
maybe like a jungle.
Since these films are island films, like that is where it takes place. They don't go to civilization. It adds a lot to the film because they're actually there. Yeah.
Well, then it's cheaper. Apparently, they had to spend less money on miniatures and stuff because they already had the location.
And there are certainly scenes that we see where they're on a set. They're in a studio.
Oh yeah.
But what's cool is to see something that's not a matte painting in the background.
Okay, so this is one of the weirdest plot points ever.
All I want to
So these guys are here doing weather, like they're learning to mess with weather, and then the reporter guy, our main guy, he comes in to snoop on him, basically.
And Joe, can you tell me why that main reporter, how he even gets there? He just like shows up.
He comes in a parachute, and
but like, was he dropped off by a plane?
Yeah, he was dropped off by a plane.
Okay, so that was it.
Yeah,
That's
there
his
was
whole thing. Because I know that he shows up in
Yeah.
a parachute, but it's like, did he just show up?
And now he's looking for that girl that we thought was swimming naked, that he just kind of like gets a glimpse of for a second.
And isn't he the
And-
lucky guy? These other scientists have been here for months, and haven't
these
seen
other guys,
anybody.
they know that the reporter guy is out there, and they're like,
Let's start.
we
the
told him
experiment.
5 o'clock. We have to start the experiment. And so let's, we're going to make this place Antarctica here soon.
Yeah, we're gonna shoot deadly, like at least for the first half, because there's two parts to their experiment. The first part is like making everything hotter to see if they can control the weather, make it hotter, and whatever they're using, they're shooting like chemicals up in the air to the clouds, something like that. The first part is not nuclear or radioactive or just whatever. It doesn't use atomic energy. Second part, they have this like small explosive. It's something that's radioactive, and it's about to happen. It goes wrong, and that's what's supposed to turn everything cold. It's blown off course on this first trial run, and it just like causes massive weather disruptions across the island.
See, I thought it was on purpose.
Well, they were trying to set it off on purpose, but what's happening here?
Oh, okay. I see what
Joe.
you're saying. I see what you're saying.
Joe, they're looking at like radioactive with some sort of radio waves, and they state
they know
there are brain waves that are messing up our
the brain
they're
waves.
picking up brain waves on their radio scanner. How do they know that they're picking up brain waves on their radio? This is taken like, because there's
Well, what
such
if
a
it's
thing
the
as,
brain of like the praying mantis thing out there?
well, what it is it's Minya. They don't know that yet, but they'll find out that it's Minya's telepathic cries to Godzilla.
Yeah.
All I'm saying is that you can have science fiction, but when you take science fiction a step further, like as in the case of having brainwaves show up on your radio scanner, there's got to be an explanation, man. You can't just go, we're picking up brainwaves on a radio scanner, because even general audiences are going to go, wait a second. Like, is that possible?
Okay, so I have a guess. There was a second there where they were trying to like, they took the palm trees and they were like freezing the palm trees. Did you see that shot there?
Yeah, well, it's because they were making it cold.
I bet that they like froze some like little tiny palm trees thing.
Yeah, you're talking about the special effects.
Then they heat it up with like a blow dryer or something close to that, and so it they kind of poofed out, I guess.
Okay.
And I bet they played the film backwards. I don't know, but that's what it looks like to me.
But Joe, so that whole destruction scene that just went on, it leads us to plot hole A, gaping plot hole. This doesn't take, because we've only viewed this is our second time in our lives viewing this, and we were immediately like, how did he survive? The nosy reporter, I think his name,
I don't know, man.
It's Kenji
He went
Sara.
through freezing temperatures and then a hurricane. That's what it looks like.
well, first off, it was getting like extremely hot, and he's all, oh my gosh, I need to get back to the camp before, and
Where's
then
that chick?
Yeah. I would assume that he like
I
found...
would have told the other guys, I'm like, hey, there's a girl out there. Like,
He did. They didn't believe him.
yeah, they didn't believe him, but I would have, more adamant.
Anyway, how he just shows back up in camp is like, so you survived this? How? I would assume that he found her cave, or that she picked him up and took him to her like cave hideout, and somehow he's just walking around.
Fine. He's walking around.
He
Makes
just shows
absolutely
up
no sense.
out of nowhere. It's like, you can't do that to your audience. You can't go like, because
I think I was shouting at the TV at this point.
Oh, so you just didn't even pay attention to it.
So I don't even know if they explained it later on, but the next cut, he's fine.
They don't care. This exact same clothing to the hat and the shirt that he was wearing when he was caught outside when they're doing those crazy weather experiments, it's fine. He's like not even disheveled in any way.
Maybe he like ran in and we just didn't see the scene.
Yeah, they just decided to cut that out.
Yeah.
But we talked giant, the 50-foot woman. Wouldn't she have grown, and wouldn't he have grown? Because these giant... the nosy reporter actually is clever. He dubs the giant praying mantises kamacuras, and I guess that's a clever name in Japanese. It's probably like the
woman should have grown if the radioactive
that's
crazy.
So, but anyway, that's our movie logic for you, which is very, very flimsy in this film. And I really can't, I have a hard time knocking Godzilla films prior to this, because this film's flimsy in comparison.
Okay.
But,
the logic. But it's full of camp and it's full of fun.
It is.
Except when the little turd shows up, which...
who's that?
Oh, something. Yeah, something that... I remember there was a monster that literally looked like a polished turd. That's what I remember. I think we'll get to it soon.
What who Joe is referring to would of course be Manila, and I'm going to find this right here because there are other people who have also criticized Manila's appearance. Let's see right here. Godzilla historian Stephen Reifel lamented the character's Manila's anthropomorphic appearance and behavior, while author David Killat dismissed the Manila costume as looking like a ratty teddy bear. Donald F. Glut...
nothing as pretty as a ratty teddy bear.
It's much worse than that, actually. He's being quite kind. Donald F. Glut went as far as saying the character resembled something out of a medical book of human freaks.
Whoa.
I want someone to agree with him in the fact that it's, those freak shows they used to have in carnivals?
No, because I never went to one, but yeah, I've heard.
Well, I mean, I haven't either. I think that predates us, Joe, but it was commonplace. And there's Manila for you.
There you
freak. So
this is one of the most brutal, disgusting parts of the movie.
I think it's something with the Japanese cinema or Japanese television, because I gotta say, this is just a slight tangent, but it's gonna come back to a point. So Pokemon. There was this Pokemon Origins thing where it was a 4 episodes miniseries, and Pokemon it's dogfighting. It's like cockfighting, but with other animals. Like the realistic, what Pokemon would really be doing is like harming each other badly, and humans are telling them to do it. So this,
and not just slapping each other like at the end of Pokemon,
and not just like what actually happens. In this Pokemon Origins mini-series, 4 episodes, I highly recommend them. As a Pokemon fan, they're awesome.
I'm not.
The very first battle between...
I gotta be your counterpoint here. We do have adults. We do have adults that listen to this
that are watching Godzilla films, watching a podcast on Godzilla.
That's true. Okay, keep going.
It's Squirtle versus Charmander. Their trainers are telling them what to do, and it's Squirtle uses Bite on Charmander. And in the original TV series, if it used Bite, it would be very, mild. It would be like, oh, he bit him and he was hurt a little bit, or maybe it makes him faint. Okay, when my friends and I were watching that, this was the uncut, fan subbed Japanese.
Okay.
Squirtle bites down on Charmander, and Charmander is screaming like bloody murder, and we're like, because we're all excited for a more realistic Pokemon. We were regretting that at that point, and that's what happens here. is these Kamacuras, they're also called Gimantuses in the American dub, so I'm going to say Gimantus because isn't
easier.
that clever? The Gimantuses, after an entire evening trying to crack open this egg, and I got to say, they must be like hungry or pissed off at his telepathic cries or something, but they're just cracking the egg. It comes open, and what do, Joe? Like,
they
explain it.
stab the crap out of this turd that is, pun intended.
Pun highly intended.
They stab the crap out of Manila, and it looks brutal.
It goes on
and it's
and
like,
on.
oh man! So they finally grew up to the point where they can finally get to that egg that they saw Godzilla lay asexually, and
that's a controversial subject because even in the Godzilla canon, they haven't ever said where that egg came from. We don't know if it's actually this Godzilla's progenitor or his son, or
it was just another T-Rex that was whose egg was buried. I don't know.
We don't know where it comes from, and it has never been fully explained. And you know what? I'm going to attribute that to being nobody cares. That's what I'm going to say. It's one of those. I do too. But I want to say that they just brushed that under the rug, at this point. So these Kamacuras stabbing at this egg. It's about to crack. And I just want to say that the tension, the suspense is sufficiently built.
As much as I hate that stupid thing, it's like, oh, that is not the way you should kill that thing.
That's not. It's the greatest introduction to a monster ever. It's like an infant. It's not even an infant. It's like a barely hatched thing.
It's a premature birthed.
It is
thing, and they're trying to stab it to death.
Oh, they're just trying to eat. This is
that's true. I guess this
is the animal kingdom. This is one of the only times this whole film that we're just viewing nature. This is just what happens, I guess.
In monster nature,
giant monster nature, which apparently exists and can sustain itself somehow. But
that face.
Even Manila doesn't deserve this.
Oh my goodness.
They just roll them away. What's to state about the difference between this Manila and the one we see throughout the rest of the film is this is definitely an animatronic. It's too small to be like a person, and you can tell by the motions that it's just a little animatronic thing.
Is it?
Oh, totally.
I couldn't tell that it was animatronic. I mean, it is something.
There's not enough movement and the legs and the movement of everything. It's just so tiny.
Sure there's not a little person in it?
Not yet.
Okay.
It certainly is a little person when we get to.
Okay. I don't have any information on that. I would like to know, but
I have his name, but I'll pull that up here in a second.
All right. So this shot of I think it's Godzilla coming, right? Yeah. Godzilla is coming towards the shore, and his scales are making a big wave as he's going through the water. And you know what? At that moment, I was like, oh, wow. So that one cool shot from 1998's Godzilla, I can't even attribute to the 1998 Godzilla.
No.
The one cool thing in 1998 Godzilla, I have to attribute to Son of Godzilla, who did it first with the Godzilla scales going through the water like that.
So do you want to hear the whole story behind that shot? It's awesome.
Sure.
So a pool was set up on Stage 9 during the production of this film, and Stage 9 is one of the largest in Toho's lot. They used the pool, which is about 5 feet deep, to film this shot of Godzilla rising above the surface of the ocean. So he's coming at the camera, and you can see his dorsal scales above the water. Looks cool, but it was a hard shot to film. Haruo Nakajima, the actor in the suit, was on a cart on a rail. He held onto the handle of the cart while it was towed by a truck. As the cart moved forward, he slowly rose out of the water. He wore a very tiny air cylinder that contained enough air for about 10 minutes. The water that rushed by his face while the cart was being towed made it very difficult for him to prevent the mouthpiece from coming out of his mouth. So
that was a dangerous shot.
One of the many which Mr. Haruo Nakajima went through for the sake of these films.
Nakajima, you good? Yeah, I'm good.
I'm good.
You want to do a safety test? Nah.
Just go.
Let's just shoot it. So Godzilla has returned to its egg, I think.
To an egg. And we just saw Godzilla. What does he look like to you, Joe?
He looks like a derp.
Why, Joe? What typifies this Godzilla for you?
All right. Well, I think one thing that you always point out is how baggy his suit is.
Whole body.
This is a cool wrestling move he does with the praying mantis right
Just
now.
kills a giant mantis in like a moment.
Yeah, he lifts it up and then like boom, whew, he throws it. So his baggy suit and then his derp eyes, and
His eyes are even larger, yeah.
they have taken his eyes more towards the center of his face to make him look more human, I guess. I don't know. It looks like Godzilla mated with King Kong. It looks terrible.
Well, okay. They were trying to make it look like a human face. Why?
I don't know.
Well, one suggestion put forth in all these articles is that they wanted him to more resemble Manila. So they took Godzilla and they manipulated Godzilla's features to make him look more like his son, who looks like an atrocity. So it's like, you know what? That's just some backwards. The fact that they've pretty much fully removed his snout in this movie. He has one, but his mouth. Manila just took a rock to the face.
Oh my goodness.
So Manila is not only pretty much confirmed prematurely born, so that's gonna cause some effects throughout his life. He's not fully formed. He just got hit in the face with a rock. And, you know, as babies, your bones aren't fully formed. Then he was stabbed repeatedly by these Kamacuras. So,
I do like this fight scene, though.
oh, yeah. I mean,
Especially when they kick the rock at
those
Manila's.
puppets.
You know, I have a problem with them stabbing Manila, but once Manila's next to Godzilla and he's like being a little whiny donkey, then I
Joe,
don't mind if he's hit in the face with a boulder.
Explain to our listening audience why you said donkey.
Because that's what Manila sounds like. He
is a donkey.
He doesn't have like a little Godzilla roar or a Godzilla roar. He literally has the sound of a whining donkey.
It's a donkey's
jackass.
beret. Yeah, he's a little jackass. And then Godzilla whipped his tail around and smacked him upside the head with it.
Yep.
So what we end up
Japanese
with Manila?
parenting for you.
Ooh.
Oh.
All right, Joe. Tell me I'm taking it too far. But Manila has no chance. He would have stood no chance had it not been for Godzilla. And here's our female islander in this film, our eye candy for the audience, so to say. She befriends Manila. I guess she could hear him somehow before he was born, and has this
like
relationship with him.
Weird King Kong-y relationship with her.
Yeah,
But it's like mother and child instead of.
I actually had never made that connection. That's kind of true.
I don't know. It's the woman, and she befriends the giant thing.
Possibly if Manila had worked, that would have been a direction for the Godzilla series. Is, you know, you have Manila grow up, and unlike Godzilla, who's been definitely established as being like not human friendly, even though, you know, Defender of the Earth-ish so far through these films, perhaps Manila could have become more of a King Kong type Godzilla, as in friendly with humans.
Yeah. All right. So this actress here.
Yeah.
I did have to go digging, and the way that I went digging was I actually went on the Japanese Wikipedia and then put on the auto translate.
Oh, so I'm sure that was just wonderful to read through, not choppy at all.
It's wonderful to read through. So if some of this information is slightly off, I forgive me.
Hey, Joe.
So her name is Beverly Maeda.
Okay.
And I have two sources here. One source says she is an Australian Japanese actress.
Oh.
Born in Australia on August 8th, 1948. And then another one says she's an American Japanese actress born in Japan.
Well, we thought. I
don't know where she's from.
There is definitely another ethnicity mixed in with Asian.
She is half Japanese and half either Australian or American. But either way, she was born August 8th, 1948.
No matter what her heritage is.
Exactly. And get this, the Japanese wiki gave her a blood type. Like, that was part of her page. I kid you not.
That's a little creepy.
It's apparently type O, so she should be donating.
She should be.
Yeah,
I think, in fact, I believe she can get paid to donate.
There you go. Can she?
Yeah,
That's crazy. She was taught classical ballet as a kid and went to some really prestigious ballet schools in high school. And then she made her, I believe, stage debut in 1964 with a musical production by Toho called No Strings.
Wow, so only 3 years prior to this film, she made her debut. That's
Well, she made her debut on stage, and I guess she
Oh.
prominently was like a stage. I'm not sure if she was an actress or a dancer or something like that.
Okay.
Once again, there's no English information on this girl. I had to find her elsewhere, but actually, she's kind of well known. She was a model for Summer Cosmetics, I guess, in the 60s, and she kind of married young at 20 years old with a famous folk singer in Japan named Mike Maki, but divorced 8 years in, leaving with a 3-year-old son named Cloud Maki, who would become a prominent TV actor in Japan. So
wow.
she,
So-
and I think she's like distant cousins to another really famous TV actor as well.
sounds like she kind of created a family dynasty there in acting.
Kind of, yeah. So her first movie role was actually a waitress in 1966 in a movie called Others of Face.
Oh,
That's what it
great
said.
translation.
That's what it said, man. And since had
Others
a prominent
of Face.
career in movies, stage, television, and recently voice acting. So that's what she's seen.
Recently, wow.
Yeah, so she's still going strong. I think she's
Got to be in her 80s, just like
she's in her 70s or something like that.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Anyway, so I didn't find that much information on her, but she hasn't been in that many movies. She seems to be more of a television actress, but this was kind of her first, from what I could tell, her first leading role, I guess.
Well, I want to say, Joe, because you helped explain this to me. So she has what we assume, just looking at her, she's definitely got Asian descent, and then her nose looks Polynesian. She just has like a Polynesian nose. She's a pretty lady. But what did you say? Because you had to explain the term to me.
It's a term that, or it's a thing that I made up where she's.
Oh, you made this up?
No, I made this up.
All right.
Okay, so, sometimes I would argue with other young gentlemen in high school about whether or not an actress was attractive on the screen.
All right.
And in my mind, I go, we all look, and if she's not a 9, we go, nah, on this, like, she's not a 9 on the screen, and thus I will have nothing to do with her. But I'm telling you that
We're really alienated our female audience today.
So if this girl were to walk into this doorway,
oh, she'd be gorgeous.
oh yeah, you're right. We'd be all over her, right? Because she's
meaning we would be kind to her and
treat
her with
we
kindness.
would treat her with respect and flirt lightly.
Yes.
Anyway, so to me, it's like movie ugly is what she is. So
Okay, and that didn't make sense to me. What you said, she's movie ugly, until you told me the opposite.
So movie ugly means she's totally hot, and she would be hot if she were sitting right here.
Yeah.
But in the movie, while we're watching it, she's like we're like, oh, she's not that.
She's, when
We have way too high standards for the people that we see on the film.
I'm nodding
When
my
you
head,
know-
nodding my head in agreement.
Even though I would be happy to date a 6.5. Right?
Let's get into our dating lives.
Right?
I have a girlfriend.
So
Anyway, so movie beautiful, the opposite is when they're beautiful on screen and then off screen they're not so much.
yeah.
And for me, I think that would be like Kristen Stewart, just saying. I still think she'd be, attractive in real life, but I think they play it up to like an nth degree in film. Where I just don't find her that
See,
attractive.
to me, it was the one that was always there was like, I don't find Jennifer Lawrence attractive on screen.
Okay.
And so, like, me and my guy friends would always argue, is she attractive? And I'd be like, no, she's not. She's a good actress. She's not attractive.
Oh.
But if Jennifer Lawrence is right there, yeah, she's attractive.
Yeah.
like, let's be honest.
And let's
right?
be fair here to
Yeah.
our female audience as well. This goes for men as well on
I'm
film.
sure it does. I'm sure it does.
So Manila grew up quick. We're seeing Manila here
Yeah,
now.
Now he can kick a stone. The same stone that hit him in the face.
Yeah, he's got forever got a thing against stones. Oh, Manila, and he's no, Joe, I think that just confirmed that he is the offspring of Godzilla because he just tripped on the rock.
Oh, yeah. Are you sure it's not just because of the weird body structure of these creatures? I'm not sure if
this
it's
creature
just a
specifically?
Godzilla thing. Although it is funny, this is the second movie that we've definitely seen Godzilla just take a nap.
Oh, that's true. And he shouldn't even have taken a nap in the last one. That was supposed to be King Kong. But in this film, I think he's just sick and tired of Manila. Oh, that overused gif. Manila tries to jump Godzilla's tail and he falls and looks like center of the shot, looks up at the camera, like looks down up, and with his like, oh, Manila.
So the next section is Manila learning, I guess, from Godzilla by stepping all over his tail and jumping around. I'd be really pissed off, though, if someone stepped on my tail, right?
Godzilla, my boss yelled at me yesterday.
Oh, man, this Godzilla is so ugly, guys. If you're not watching this movie, just look up screenshots. This is the worst look. I thought the last Godzilla looked pretty bad.
I thought the last few, because I really had to think back. King Kong versus Godzilla, we had like a little thing against the eyes there, but he looked like Godzilla, as in long neck, reptilian features, small eyes to the side of the head, a snout. All of that is done away with on this film, and I didn't think it could get worse, and yet it did.
Oh, no, it's terrible.
When you try to fuse a Godzilla face with a human face, you get the, I want to say this is the Muso Goji suit. I'm looking at Musuko Goji suit. The specs on the suit are that the suit is much larger than the previous Godzilla suits in order to make Godzilla appear taller than Manila. Again, in very, to me, ass backwards conceptualization for Godzilla. Because you're not supposed to take a pre-established character, Godzilla, and make him adapt to like a new character. But they totally did that.
They made it geared towards kids, and I have to keep making the stupid argument over and over again where people in the movie industry keep on thinking that kids want to watch movies
geared towards kids.
Geared towards kids, and they don't.
Kids don't know Jack.
They just don't. I mean, maybe like a tiny kid, like a little kid, like a 3-year-old.
Okay, that brings me, because I got to talk about this, Joe. What do you think is the target audience for Manila? Like, what is the appeal?
No one is the target audience for Manila.
No, but they had to have
Manila
one.
is too ugly for like a good doll, and I can't imagine any target audience for this Manila.
There can't be. There can be like a very small one that you can't even very cater to.
I watched the other. I don't know what the freaking movie was now.
Godzilla's
Revenge. Okay, I watched Godzilla's Revenge as a child. And it was too cutesy for me, and I hated it.
Yes, that's what I want to say.
And I say cutesy, but it's like ugly, embarrassing, trying to be cutesy.
Exactly. They're trying too hard.
It looks like a turd.
Because there was about three to five parts in this film where I was like, oh, I was genuinely like, oh, but then I had to refrain. And the only reason I was like, oh, is because of his movements, not because of the way he looks. Some of his interactions between Godzilla, I have to admit, even as a hard-hearted, like, cynical 25-year-old having to watch through these films, the ones I don't want to watch, which is this one, I was like, oh, but his target audience, it has to be towards infants. Because
I don't even know if it's that, dude.
At about 3 to 5,
what infant wants to see this thing?
Well, what I'm saying is kids get smart real young, and they start realizing what's cool and what the older kids, even like 6-7-year-olds, think is cool, and they immediately want that. So they want Godzilla. What is Manila then? Nobody wants him. It's like I can see Manila being a character in these geared towards, again, infants, toddlers, not infants, because infants don't get anything from television, but toddler shows where it's like, you know, they explain to you, let's talk about the letter K.
Yeah, but then you have a part with the giant praying mantis stabbing the thing.
See, again, it's counterintuitive. You got to think like...
This movie is made for no one. And it only sold how many tickets?
It sold enough. It
made its money, but it was one of the lower.
So I have it right.
Films 2,480,000 tickets, which I think when I plugged in, if the tickets cost $850 in today's time, it would make like $20-something million. So not great.
Oh well. We could go on and on about how terrible a decision it is for Manila, and what I wanted to say.
Well, we will.
We'll have to, because he's going to reappear in these films.
He's not only going to reappear, we're also going to see his footage show up in that movie that I was talking about. So
they're going to reuse stock footage.
They're going to reuse stock footage, and it's going to be in Godzilla's Revenge and in Godzilla vs. Gigan.
And I believe there will be some in Destroy All Monsters, because they're going to try to explain away well, what happens, we're going to get to it at the end of this film, but what do you think, Joe? This, our female lead, her name's Raiko, and then that's in the Japanese version, and it's like Seiko in the American version. For whatever reason, they felt they had to change it. She's wearing our Japanese Clark Kent's clothing.
Yeah,
so there's something going on. That's the...
Now she warns of the giant spider. So I do want to say that not all things are bad in this movie.
No, because it brings Kumonga, the giant spider, in. This is his first appearance, and he's a cool villain. I guess he's just a big...
Giant spiders are just cool.
Oh, yeah. His first appearance, he looks okay to me. I don't like how they spray painted him. I've had to point that out. Instead of like spray painting him, you know when you take a can of spray paint and you just spray a dot, you don't move it and you just go...
Yeah.
That's what they did on the giant spider. They just put yellow dots on him, and so it looks like spray paint. But for the most part, the Gimantises and the American version English dub name for Kumonga, which Kumonga, all Godzilla fans will know. It's your giant spider, but they call him Spiga in the American versions, which sounds... Spiga. Sounds like something that a Gollum would say. Everybody knows him though. He's going to be reoccurring, and he's kind of cool. I don't. His appearance in this film is definitely cool because they wake him from I actually think he's coming up real soon here. But,
yeah, not all things are bad. So we were initially put off by the actress because we're pigs, and then then we were kind of like I don't know. After like 2 scenes with her, she's like, no, yeah, she's hot. Okay, yeah. Yeah, she's hot. And so we watched it as pigs, and
you say that, but
enjoyed it as pigs.
When the level of attractive female actresses in this film has been very high, and then they bring in this woman who's, good looking. It's kind of like, oh, she's not
only good looking.
Yeah. But then she just keeps adding more and more. First, she's wearing Kenji Sahara's character's clothes, and then she's wearing this hat.
There was that weird part earlier when he was like chasing her through the woods, and I was like, "What's going on here?"
And
but
again,
it was innocent, and
it's all innocent. This is a children's film. The Warm Red Lake, Joe.
Tell us about that.
All we thought was Joe. Upon our first viewing of the film, Joe. So we're introduced to the Warm Red Lake and no explanation given of what that even is. Godzilla and our very first viewing of Manila grown up form is next to that lake, and it's just on fire. And so immediately I was like, is that supposed to be lava? Because it looks like just water, red water that's on fire. And Joe's like, they've done better lava.
Yeah.
Because on Rodan, the like climactic finale to Rodan, the mountains like spewing forth lava.
I don't know, they got like red oatmeal or something used for lava in the other movie.
Great. It was like bright orange.
It looks like lava.
And it's on fire. And so only later on is that explained away. It's a warm red lake that has some cure for this jungle disease or something that the other people have, the other scientists on the island. I had to say something about those scientists on the island too, Joe.
Yeah.
There's one scientist of them all who seems to be going nuts. He's just like, will grab somebody's gun and run away to the ocean and is just losing his mind. And they're all like, trying to hold him back and say like, it's okay, just hold. They're trying to subdue him. All of them should be like that. They're calling him crazy. They're the crazy ones for being normal because they're stranded on this island.
Giant praying mantis.
Giant praying mantises, giant spider. Godzilla's showing up.
Okay, so before the weather thing happened, the spider was already giant? It must have been, in order for that woman to know about it.
Maybe it was just large enough that she was like scared of it, because even at the size that the praying mantises were before they became a radioactive size,
maybe she was like, big. Oh, it's like 4 times as big now. That's weird.
And here's Godzilla parenting for you. He raises his hand to his son and thinks to step on his tail to make his atomic breath work instead of the comical smoke rings.
So, I mean, it's good filmmaking, I guess, because we do realize without words that Manila needs to have a high amount of stress in order to blow more than smoke rings. So
then he wants to. Oh, he's cute.
He's a little cute. But yeah, it's ridiculous.
It's that you can tell that his father is disappointed in him. Like,
I do not think he's cute. I'm going to put that down on record. True.
I want to say when I squint, Joe, because I don't think he's cute either, but some of his movements, and you got to think,
if this thing
little
were
people
cuter
in the
and
industries.
lovable, I guess I would like this.
Do you want to hear some of the descriptive adjectives used to describe Manila's appearance that I've come across?
Hell Spanish.
Not quite that dark. Fleshy, pudgy, gray. Just negative.
So like a turd.
Yeah. Well, what they were trying to go for in that
Muddy,
very first
disgusting,
rat-like,
hateful,
Gollum-esque. What?
and not Smeagol, Gollum, all the way.
When you look at Manila with squinted eyes, the form of Manila, oh, he's cute. When you open up your eyes and have 20/20 vision, it's suddenly like he's a snaggletooth, little like pancake-faced atrocity. His eyes, again, he just looks too human. It's terrifying. And then guess what, Joe? I had to think. I was like, well, what could have made him better?
Nothing.
Nothing.
Killing him.
Yes.
I guess,
can't make a good-looking
it would be
son
a
of
sad
Godzilla.
moment if we saw this like disgusting, crying fetus come out of the egg and the things were poking him. But if they had killed him and pissed off Godzilla, that would have been first off a better plot, and second off would have made me care more for the stupid turd that shows up later in the movie. And I say turd because this is supposed to be a clean show.
Again, we can continue to berate the little bee because
Like I said, we will.
because he is a bee child. I mean,
I think we're gonna get some flack from people who care about Manila, and I honestly don't understand you.
I can't see a defense for this guy. Try to talk an hour and a half about this film and about Manila with being more positive than negative, because I'm going out on a limb and saying some things positive for Manila. Some. But overall,
I got nothing.
Joe, nope.
No. All right. So I will distract myself from Manila and say,
Please do.
You mentioned earlier where we have the same composer as our previous movie with Jun Fukuda, as well as Godzilla Raids Again. His name is Masaru Sato. And this guy kind of brings a weird jazzy edge to his Godzilla movies, and I personally don't like it, but we did have a listener who wrote in and said we should give him a second chance. And I'll tell you, this guy has done good scores, and I will defend his scores for the Akira Kurosawa movies he's worked on, but I don't think that the style he brings to these Godzilla movies helps the Godzilla movies. I think there's a depth and breadth to the music from Ifukube or from the composers who did the music in the 80s, which I don't know their names right now, but we'll do more research when we get there. Those guys all brought something to Godzilla that had heft and had weight, and it was something that even if the movie didn't have heft and weight, it would at least remind us that, oh yeah, this monster comes from a darker place. Or remember, these monsters are big. I don't get big when I hear the cymbals going tss, 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 tss. Like, it doesn't feel right.
And I want to, because I think what you were getting to, and yes, I agree in some aspects. I think it fits in well with these two films, in my opinion.
Okay.
But I want to say, in accordance with what you're saying, that Ifukube's scores bring more of an authenticity to the films, especially for adult fans of the films, where you're like, you want, again, authenticity, the darker past of Godzilla brought forth into these less dark movies. Read verbatim, you guys were a little harsh. This is our person who wrote that. You were a little harsh on Masaru Sato's music. While it does lack the large dramatic tones of Ifukube, Sato's themes did fit in well with the movies to which he was assigned. I agree on that part. Joe, not so much.
I think he could have saved the movies by having more of an
epic tone.
Yeah.
A lot of people think the bombastic themes of Ifukube wouldn't fit well with the island's films, while Sato's fits well. That's the thing, is that's kind of a moot point not having an opinion on that, because the fact is Ifukube's score is not in these films, so one can't either defend or be against whether Ifukube would have fit in better with these films.
I don't know, man. I think the movie would feel more serious just with more serious music. And like imagine like some like that kind of stuff going on when the mantises are stabbing the little creature. Like there would suddenly be, and maybe it would be tonally off from the rest of the film,
Possibly.
but there would suddenly be something really menacing about them, instead of, and it is menacing regardless. I don't remember if music plays, but I certainly don't think it's added to by the score of Masaru Sato, who has made great scores. I'll give him that, but not in the Godzilla series that I've seen so far.
Yes,
in my opinion.
Joe's opinion. You have to realize that the fun theme of these films comes a lot in part from the music. So if you took away the music, say had no score, this would be a darker film. And then you add Ifukube's score, say, having never heard a Sato score to this, and I think it would have fit in well. I think both could fit in well. It plays more to your personal preferences, and overall, yes, these films are more lighthearted. So, it's up for debate.
Well, I just remember as a kid, we used to have a piano growing up, and I would plink
like
out.
A real piano or a keyboard?
Like a real piano.
Oh, I think I remember that in your house.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I would just go da-da-da, 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 da-da-da. Like I figured it out. It's really easy.
Yeah.
But
really easy, but very.
It's all on the A minor, so it's all white keys. At least the version that I plinked out on the piano.
Okay.
It was that theme, and then it was the blah, 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 blah. And I had never seen this as a kid, but I know my experience with the other Son of Godzilla movie, Godzilla's Revenge, that it doesn't matter if it doesn't feel like Godzilla, if it doesn't have that sort of epicness, which we even got with the corniness of Astro Monsters had that score. It just felt right. It felt like a Godzilla movie, and these scores from Masaru Sato rarely feel like a Godzilla movie.
And I want to say that biasedly, yes, we can say it feels like a Godzilla film because he did the first one. But regardless of just that fact, I think that it just fits the films very well. Again, Kumonga's made his, well, not again, but Kumonga makes his first appearance in this film. He gums up our... What kind of a lighter is that?
I don't know. That's the weirdest
looking lighter. It's got like a gun lighter.
And it's also a really weird way to get out of the snare of the thing, because obviously it's not that sticky, or else he wouldn't just be like grabbing handfuls of it and then lighting the other half of it. I find that an odd way of escaping, but they do it just fine. But yeah, this is probably the coolest monster in this movie, and I would say even cooler than Godzilla in this movie.
I want to say that as well, just because
he doesn't have a derp face.
We already talked about at length the American horror-esque that we see in this, because just giant bugs that like littered the cinemas in America, the horror at this time period. It's cool to see Kumonga try to get at the main actors with his like spider leg as they're in this like small crevice. It's very dramatic, there's a lot of tension.
It's funny how far movies went from this movie in 1967 to 1999 or 2000 when they filmed Return of the King. And Frodo in the giant spider's lair and getting stuck in the strings. You'll definitely see like a different quality with the nets.
And that's like a 30-year difference.
That's true. It is a 30-year difference, and it's probably an unfair difference after the advent of, not that the webs were CGI, but CGI was, started to become
very prevalent.
Terminator 2 was 1992, I believe. So it's kind of, ever since then, we've had certainly a different level of sophistication in special effects. And now it's almost swung where it's like too much CGI, and now it looks even worse than it did in the 90s. Isn't that crazy?
Hey, Joe.
What?
Do you remember G-Man?
Yeah, I do remember.
Well, we were talking about this. You want me to read his note about what the directors directed and what the special effects directed?
Yeah, and I think I've talked about I have given the caveat on at least one of these episodes where I said I do not know what the relationship was with whether or not the director was in during the special effects sequences, but I have a feeling I know what he's going to say.
And here we are with a more expert opinion, at least facts, than ourselves. G-Man, he said, minor note I meant to give you because I think one of you aired, you weren't entirely sure who called the shots on what, as in with effect shots. Yeah. Well, with shots in general. With Toho's special effects films, the special effects director pretty much had complete control of the effects portions. It's probably best to think of these films directed by two people, which is way interesting. The lead director, so Honda or Fukuda, they take the dramatic scenes, and the special effects director literally directs the effects footage, so the whole thing, not just what's going on in your shot, but the shot itself, with the same power as the film's director. So Tsuburaya and Arikawa, goes on, in fact, in many instances, Honda wouldn't get to see the special effects shot until late in the game because Tsuburaya wasn't finished. And, Tsuburaya being somewhat notorious, it seems like, is kind of being... He had a personality. Oh, okay. Not to say that it was brash, but
so he was power hungry and
I don't know. Just
he was an emperor.
He was a person who knew what he wanted. It seemed like, and when Tsuburaya created his own production company, it eventually got changed to where the director of an episode did both the effects and the dramatic footage. So that's what Tsuburaya's Productions. But what I think, because of course some of that relationship to how that worked with the Tsuburaya and Honda films had to have bled into these Fukuda and Arikawa films like this one and the last one. Yet it seems as if it's less so in these ones, because all of a sudden it starts to make a little bit more sense when this fact is revealed that, especially in these later Honda and Ifukube films, say Astro Monster, Ghidorah the Three-Headed Monster, you always see the main characters looking on from a hillside or looking on from like a mountaintop or something down onto the fight. And the actors are just supposed to act like, they probably did multiple takes where they're just emoting towards something. And like J-Man pointed out, perhaps it wasn't even finished yet. So Honda wouldn't have known what they're reacting to. And that's why there's such a clear distinction between the characters aren't really involved in this, and yet I pointed out something I really liked about the Godzilla versus the Red Bamboo Jets in the last film is all of a sudden they're at the feet of Godzilla running away from him like frightened, our main characters, and then they of course go back to the trope, somewhat of a trope, of being on top of a hill and looking down on the fight. And so, it just, to me, that kind of symbolizes that there was that large distinction between who directs what. It's as G-Man pointed out, two directors almost. Two different parts of the film that come together.
I'm sure that's what it became. In fact, I'm sure during these films, definitely, that's probably what it was, and probably since the second Godzilla film.
And you say you're sure like because...
That. No, I say I'm sure that's what it became because obviously Tsuburaya, he's the guy who knows how to do the special effects, and thus people are, maybe he doesn't want the director there. I'm guessing. This is all... guesswork based upon what G-Man has said. He probably at some point just became more and more powerful for the production side of things.
We definitely know he did.
And then the directors are now for hire and are no longer like the creative side of the special effects. And so it's all Tsuburaya from there. There are, however, pictures of, at least with the original Godzilla film, of Ishiro Honda, being there during the miniature stuff. And so I feel like with at least that first film, the true Ishiro Honda film, him himself saying that was his best film that he ever did, and truly his own film, I believe that one probably has the most Ishiro Honda, or at least the most director influence in the old era of the Toho pictures. And then probably Tsuburaya got more and more powerful within the production company. And Ishiro Honda became more and more of a company man instead of an auteur, which he is not an auteur director, and for someone whose vision is throughout the entirety of the movie.
Yes, and it goes along with staying along with just one vision in the film. And I want to say that is a strong point, I would assume. Well, I know for Gojira is that those effect shots are more of a cinematic quality. and you get varied shots. You get shots of the whole skyline and it's on fire, and Godzilla's like a tiny little Godzilla going across the skyline. You get many varied shots of Godzilla. And then we kind of talked about it where, because again, in King Kong versus Godzilla, that was still early on, so perhaps Honda had more control or say or saw what was going on, at least with the shots. The fighting was choreographed, the cinematography during the effects parts of the films, it's more cinematic. And then what we said at the time, King Ghidorah, the three-headed monster and Astro Monster, it just seemed as if they were less well choreographed to the fights.
Yeah, maybe. And it could just be
Perhaps
the cheapness of the production or something.
Yes.
But I feel like there's a director's vision in that first movie, whether or not.
Oh, totally.
And even through the special effects. But, you know, definitely. I can believe that probably the special effects director was left alone at some point because, you know, they started
pumping his own devices.
They started pumping these things out like a.
It was yearly.
Yeah,
it was yearly.
Exactly. You know, directors used to not have a cut of their own film. In Hollywood, at least now, it's a thing that directors all have. So the editor gets
Joe's Facts.
Okay, so. With Hollywood films, the editor gets, I think they have a minimum of, I think they get 12 weeks on a film or something like that. It might be less than that.
To edit?
It depends on the budget of the film. And,
to edit.
Yeah.
Okay.
They're part of their own union, so they actually have like unionized time slots or how these things are supposed to go. So the editor gets so many weeks on the film.
Okay.
And then the director comes in and he gets to have his own edit of the film where he works with the editor and he makes a director's cut. And then that director's cut is what's shown to producers and what's shown to possible, you know, test audiences.
Yeah.
And then from there, the studio goes, okay, we need to change these things or whatever. Or sometimes if it's a powerful director, they get a director's cut where it's, you know, the final cut is from the director, which is rare.
You
but
said
sometimes.
the director's cut goes to test audiences. Did you mean the editors?
No, I mean the directors.
Really? Oh.
Yeah. So the director is supposed to get a certain amount and the editor is supposed to get a certain amount of time. So the editor makes their own cut.
Where does the editor's cut go?
That's the first cut.
Oh.
The very first cut. That's the.
And does the director work off that
That's the
cut?
compiled cut. It usually doesn't have any scenes cut out. The editor's not supposed to make creative decisions like that.
Oh.
And then they work with the director who's supposed to be there for a certain number of weeks, which I believe is like 1/3 or 1/2 the amount of time that the editor worked on it.
Okay.
It's really like exact unionized pictures like that.
Yeah.
So Hollywood movies.
Well, I mean, if they're rolling out a lot of films, you got to have
Yeah.
some standardization. Otherwise, people are just going to go take forever.
And with the old Hollywood system, and I assume Toho is similar with this, directors, I know Akira Kurosawa was his own editor, which is odd. Most of the time, directors would just direct the picture, and then the editor would edit the picture.
Yeah.
And they weren't, the director didn't come in and have a say.
Very distinct jobs.
Yeah, they were very distinct. And I assume it was the same in Toho. That's what I assume. That's how it was throughout most of Hollywood.
Throughout this film, we've already seen so many similarities between, you know, Japanese Hollywood, so Japanese film studios, and American. Stuff that I wouldn't have expected, to be completely honest. So that was a very interesting fact brought to us by G-Man, and thank you, G-Man. You're always a great source. Okay, Joe. So Haruo Nakajima did not play Godzilla for very much of this film, honestly.
He didn't?
No. So here we go. The suit was made much larger than previous Godzilla suits in this film in order to make Godzilla appear taller than Manila. I've already said that. For this reason, veteran Godzilla suit actor Haruo Nakajima was limited to playing Godzilla in water tank footage using the previous Godzilla costume. Baseball player Seiji Onaka was instead cast as the main Godzilla performer.
He's just really tall dude, I'm guessing.
Well, and probably just the weight of it. I don't know. We'll see.
Maybe.
But Onaka injured his hand actually early in filming and subsequently was replaced by Hiroshi Sakita, better known for playing Sanda opposite Nakajima in War of the Gargantuas. So, you know, we'll get to that.
That's a movie we haven't gotten to yet.
Yeah, and eventually we're gonna have kind of a split, and we're gonna have people. I haven't even mentioned this to you, Joe, because. Well, do you want to mention what we're going to end up doing here soon?
Let's talk about it after the credits.
Okay.
Just put a pin in that.
All right.
So we're coming here to the sequence of the movie that I like because it has less Manila in it. Giant spider fighting with the giant praying mantis. Up. And then eventually our scientists here are trying to, of course, change the weather once again in order to get away, I think.
They don't care about these giant monsters, Godzilla or any of them. They just want to get out of there.
So get this. I was reading up a bunch of stuff on climate change this week.
Okay,
and
why?
So there's something here that's actually very interesting. They're putting these balloons in the air, and then the balloons are popping and putting some sort of chemical in the air that's changing the weather.
Yeah.
Now, there was one thing that I found a very interesting way of controlling climate change.
Manipulating weather.
That some scientists had thought of. It was taking basically the giant tubes or hoses in the ocean and shooting up tons and tons of water into the air in order to make it evaporate, in order to make more clouds. In order to cool the earth down.
So basically jets, like steam coming off.
So they're trying to just like push it out so that the water would evaporate.
That's got to do something to the ocean's ecosystem. I'm just saying.
Well, yeah, where it's at, definitely.
Yeah.
So I thought that was a very
that's
to
clever.
me, I was like, I don't know how many of those giant things they would have to, how many, we have to pump out at least 9 clouds a day. I don't even know what that would be.
The energy required to actually do that, is it worth the effect that it has on the weather?
I have no idea.
Has that ever do you have any idea if that's been tested, or is that all just theory?
I think there's a bunch of different companies that have sprung up that are trying to get funding from really rich people to make certain things. Some people are trying to take carbon out of the atmosphere and then sell the carbon to oil companies in order to
I wonder if that could ever become profitable.
In the air. Well, I don't know. I can't. It was it's called negative carbon or something like that. It's weird. It's a weird process.
Joe, the things you're talking about are far more interesting in this film.
And to me, when I see that weather balloon pop, I'm like, oh, they're making clouds. Now, it would never happen to the speed that it does in this movie, but I thought that.
Well, they're not using atomic radiation to alter the weather.
Yeah,
so,
I thought that was one of the cooler ideas that I had heard of when I was reading up on some climate change science stuff.
So the scientist who talks, Joe, we're looking into science here. I am
Wikipedia on the train, baby.
Boy. Well, the main scientist in this film, it's not Harada. It's another recurring actor whose name I am not aware of, but we have many recurring actors in this film. They make up the bulk of the cast.
I'm going to have to start getting cards. I'm going to have to put cards together and just
I've thought about making a whole chart. If a fan wants to do that would be awesome, because it's kind of hard to keep track of all of these actors and their appearances and
they're all repeated and none of them carry over the same character that they had before.
If we do a giant, a genealogical chart type thing, just branching out, film to film. But, well, Joe, Kumonga's dead. Seemingly.
It's not dead yet, but yeah, we're getting there.
Do you think they just using that gummed up effect because Mothra uses it?
It must be really cheap. Because they, Toho doesn't do anything unless they want to save money.
Well, it is. Wow. you talk about me being brutal. That's pretty brutal. It is silly string, so
Yeah, it's something like silly string. It's certainly the same material we saw Mothra shoot out is what the spider's shooting out.
I also like how in this film there really isn't a consistency to Godzilla's atomic breath to its effectiveness, because unless he's just blatantly missing, because Godzilla can shoot at one Kamakura, send him flying and set him on fire, and that was one of the coolest effects. As our heroes are running away and this Kamakura flaming on fire is thrown past the heroes, and it's all in the same shot, so it's got to be superimposed on the film, the flaming Kamakura. And then Godzilla just used his atomic breath on the Kumonga. And prior to that, he'd used it on another Gigantus. Kamakura Gigantus, same thing. And it doesn't do anything. Kumonga's just walking away. And, yeah. One thing you gotta say is it's weird that Godzilla's neck is so much longer, because they'd been steadily making his neck less and less prominent, and he was
he's just getting older and the rest of him is sagging. Like he used to have these like big muscle building shoulders and they're just like they're shrinking because he's not wrecking any cities. He's just kind of chilling out in the jungle, you know, getting pregnant by himself. He's taking naps all day. So
he's really adapting into an old person's lifestyle.
Maybe, man. Maybe his neck is just kind of like the thing that's left.
like how in the humans,
that cloud effect is cool. I don't know how they did that, but that was pretty cool.
Well, in humans, your nose and your ears never stop growing. Like you'll stop growing, but then you notice
that's
how,
what I've heard.
Well,
is that true?
Yeah, because old people have larger ears. They have big ears and big old noses.
Let me tell you how we're going to stop climate change. Okay, go ahead.
You go on. That's way more interesting.
I was kidding.
But
it's like, let me
maybe
save
for
my
Godzilla,
PS.
his neck just gets longer and longer. And if Godzilla's live for a long time, that's how they eventually die. Is their neck just gets too long for their body to support it.
Is it terrible that I'm still pro nuclear power despite watching all these movies?
Yeah, I am too. You know.
Yeah, I'm sure we're gonna get flack for that.
Joe, the through line to these films, though, this main scientist said. He says to the Nosy Reporter, you know how the Earth will be overpopulated very soon? And the Nosy Reporter goes,
very.
But the Nosy Reporter goes, yeah. Dude, that's one of those scientific facts that takes no backing, and people will just go, yeah, that sounds right.
I can't remember. They always have a number that's like, well,
Joe,
this is the too much
This
number.
movie took place in the 70s. Are we overpopulated yet? See?
No.
That's what I'm saying,
because
man.
all someone needs to do is like take a drive through Nevada and be like,
oh, or Utah, man.
There's plenty of room.
As long as we can get water transported out to them, that's livable, viable.
And as a kid who pretty much grew up out here or in
we got a lot
Colorado,
of land. We got a lot of dry land, but we got a lot of land.
Even when I went back east to New England, there's still plenty of room. But there's the cities, there's the megalopolis that goes from like Washington D.C. up to New York, and that's a lot of people. But even then, there's still room.
What I'm saying is that the scientific through lines for these films, the message, so to say, of these films is so
that is the
so
most
weak.
Disgusting image. Sorry.
Well, you want to
if anybody's watching this with us, you'll see it. It's a Godzilla looking at a furry orifice.
It's his mouth. It's his mouth.
I know it's his mouth, but it's a furry opening in a body
podcast, and not Godzilla.
Godzilla's eyes are looking at it, and then he's like, it's going back and forth between Godzilla's face and then that furry thing, and then a little thing pokes out of the furry thing, and it's freaky.
Yeah, it's very badly done.
I don't know. It's oddly.
Because they didn't just show Godzilla crouch over and get his face right next to the mouth of the spider. It's all implied. It's like the mouth, Godzilla's face. The mouth, Godzilla's face. It's going back and forth between the shots.
They thought they were doing something cool.
And they weren't, because that's not in Godzilla's nature at all. He would have just slammed it with his tail, hit it with his atomic breath again, just double tapped that giant spider. Oh man, Manila's gonna save the day though, which redeems him.
So stupid. The spider in the snow is pretty cool though.
I want to say they did a good job with the puppetry in this film for the most part. For 90% of it, it's great. Manila just defeated Humunga. The only time that I was like the puppetry was a little weird is as they have this pulled out shot of a Kamakura. I keep saying that because it just rolled off the tongue. The giant mantis coming at Manila. And he's moving, the puppetry's moving him faster than his legs are actually moving, so it looks a little weird. But other than that, I mean, I really like the puppetry. It makes for very easy Godzilla to just defeat him, because he just grabs a puppet, the suit actor, and just messes it up. Godzilla, of course, will now wear an eye patch throughout the next films. Not his Regenerator G1, which will be introduced later.
It's funny how many times he has shot the spider with the atomic breath, and then one time it just works.
Well, I want to say it's a combination.
Now the spider hurts.
I want to say it's a combination of the freezing that's going on and...
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. The spider force field is down. I have no idea. Well, this is a very interesting ending, though, and as much as I hate Manila, this is not this part where they're roasting the spider alive, even though that is
horrible.
Cool.
That must have smelled
that's
horrible.
Probably toxic rubber, and all the crew is breathing that in.
Oh, you're talking about the literal on
Yeah,
the
the
effect.
literal
I was
on
talking
the-
about like in the fantasy of this film.
Oh yeah, that probably smelled too.
Giant burning spider. But, our heroes just destroyed a whole ecosystem on this island by freezing it for an indefinite period of time, because who knows if they're able to create winter and summer with this.
And like freezing Godzilla and Manila in cryo sleep, from what I can tell.
I like how
through
they're
their
just.
weather.
I like how they're just bare. Dude, you can see the lines in the map painting on the.
It's not a matte painting. It's probably a studio, and then they.
Well, you can
and
see.
then they added a matte painting or an extra frame of film on top of it. But I did see the lines.
You
right.
see all the lines behind it.
There wouldn't be lines in a matte painting. That's not a thing that would happen. They had lines where they shot it. And now there's differences.
Godzilla's about walking away from Manila. He's just like, I'm leaving you behind.
It's like, I realize that you're a crappy character.
And honestly, in a real, viable, a real life ecosystem here, survival of the fittest, man.
Yes, a survival of the fittest.
Darwin said it, and he was right. Manila would have been. So let's say, honestly, the scientists saved Manila's life, because what if Godzilla had just swam away, as he is prone to do at the end of each film? Manila couldn't have kept up with him.
No.
Don't you just think that killer whales would have picked off Manila?
It's okay. Godzilla's just hibernated in the snow a few times. I think it's like something that apparently these super
monsters,
nuclearized
beings
things. They're like whatever the worst paleontologists in the world call them. They're the missing link between dinosaurs and the creatures, like ichthyosaurs or something like that.
Yeah.
It wasn't ichthyosaurs. It was something else, and I was getting it mixed up. So whatever it was, the amphibious dinosaur.
That is Godzilla.
Apparently these ones hibernate in the snow. And, he's hugging the disgusting turd in the snow. Actually, this is a nice shot because we're not seeing Manila's face.
See, that's what I said, Joe. Every time his back is turned and he's doing some cutesy little movements, I'm like, oh. And then you see the face and you're like, you ruined it. You ruined it. You had to show the face. You want to know what Manila has, Joe? Manila has lazy eyes. There's a thing. That's a cock eye, Joe. You just put your one eye to the side there. But it's when your eyes from the top are just half shut constantly. Because if you have a lazy eye, then your one eye is a little lower than the other one, the top of it, your lid. But lazy eyes is both your lids are just kind of halfway down your eyes and you never quite fully wake up. That's Manila's problem. I'm supposing they did that just so when he's like shocked, as in when he's doing his own... When he's doing his own atomic breath, he's like, whoa. So, Joe, what's happening?
Very interesting. So when I was thinking of the ending, the scene, I was thinking of Godzilla and Manila in the snow hugging and everything was there. And then our heroes, of course, actually made it off the island and are floating around in the middle of the sea. They see this, once again, sort of what we saw with Godzilla coming through the water, where they see like this giant bulge of water coming towards them.
Yeah.
And then, look, it's a submarine coming to save the day.
They almost thought it was another Godzilla there for a moment.
That's probably one of the better shots in the Godzilla films, though. I mean, if there's something that's good in this movie, that's...
Yeah, the shot.
It's interesting, shot. I think. It's very interesting.
And you got to say that just along the same lines as the last film, there's our American actors in their military, their Navy hats,
and
their
English
suit and
teachers
ties.
that are... Hey, I can get Bob to come and be the extra.
They were just on that sub in their suit and ties and their Navy.
Yeah, suit and ties.
I had to point that out. I was like,
that is not a Navy uniform.
No. They look like they're CIA agents wearing like some sort of Navy hat. I don't know military stuff.
Like in this world, they could freeze the Russians out with that. With that technology, man.
You mean they could freeze out
their agriculture?
Don't you know the pseudo like American Russia mashup that was in Mothra? I don't know its name. That doesn't exist anymore in this universe, apparently.
Apparently not.
That was the end of the film. We are through with Son of Godzilla, and we only have one more film that Joe and I are dreading to go through. It won't be our next one, however. Joe, do you want to explain what we want to do?
Yeah. I can't remember the name of the movie, but
No, I can.
our next Godzilla movie is Giant Monsters. Tell me.
No, it's Destroy All Monsters.
Destroy All Monsters.
Yes.
Okay, and it includes monsters that we have not yet seen before in the Godzilla movies.
Therefore,
so much like when we went to Godzilla vs. Mothra and went back and watched Mothra before we watched Godzilla vs. Mothra,
and
we got to go back and watch the monsters that show up in this other movie. We got to watch their movies.
Exactly, and to plug ourselves further, before we watched Ghidorah the Three-Headed Monster. No, Joe. Rodan appears in that film, so we went back and we watched Rodan.
Yes.
There's going to be at least 2 monsters. I found out there may be a third, but we'll have to look into
research,
that.
Yeah.
We're going to go into what
to figure that out.
Yeah, we have some time, and we'll see how frequently these come out. Why, Joe? Is the frequency going to be Again, plug yourself. Emmanuel's Song.
Emmanuel's Song is a short film that I am working on. It's going to be my thesis film for film school.
Go, Joe.
On top of
go, Joe.
I think it's a really strong script. A lot of people are getting behind me on it. We have raised $787 on Indiegogo so far.
Nice.
We need to raise at least $2,000. We put our goal at $4,000 though. So if you wish to help support a budding young filmmaker, you could please go to emmanuelssong.com, or I guess you can go to Indiegogo and just search for Emmanuel's Song. Anyway, I think it's really cool. There's a video there that tells you all about the project, so if you want to find out more, you can go check that out.
And how are we going to follow you on Twitter to find updates on that?
Well, you can go to @JosephDeGollier on Twitter, Drew. And
Joe, how do you spell your last name?
DeGolyer.
Because no one in their right mind is going to be able to spell DeGollier the right way.
Well, our name is on the podcast when you look at the screen, so I just figured if they want to find me on Twitter, they can do it. And if they want to find me on Twitter, they can also probably just find you, and they'll be able to find me.
Because I'm always tweeting at you.
And what are you, Drew?
At Drew Daybell, or just Gojira Jaeger, Jaeger. And
Drew Daybell is spelled exactly how it sounds. It must be nice.
Well,
it must be nice having a name like that.
Except it's so literal that people think it can be literal.
They're like putting DAE.
Yeah, they're just taking it
BUL.
It's Day and it's Bell. But that means that we will at least be viewing, before Destroy All Monsters, Varon the Invincible and Frankenstein Conquers the World. And that's where it's going to become split, Joe, because I kind of have this thing, the sequel to Frankenstein Conquers the World is War of the Gargantuans, a film that many people through our reviews and on other media, Twitter, have talked to us about and been like, War of the Gargantuans, War of the Gargantuans.
It's like a $6 DVD. We can do it.
No, I own it.
Oh, yeah.
It came with Rodan.
Oh.
So when we get to that point, and you can chime in whenever you want, it's going to be split as to whether we're going to go from Frankenstein Conquers the World to War of the Gargantuans or on to Destroy All Monsters. Eventually, we're going to get to War of the Gargantuans, but whether we do sooner or later will be determined by you.
So, Drew, I know you're going to give away your King Kong Escapes Blu-ray.
I have the
DVD?
American version on Blu-ray. I have the Japanese version on Blu-ray.
Which one are you giving away?
Both.
Both. Okay.
We're giving away the Japanese and the English versions.
All right. And it's all based on iTunes review, or you can contact us on our contact page and tell us how much you love our show.
Yeah.
And give us a review there if you don't want to download iTunes. But we do have 2 iTunes reviews that we're going to read. Drew, you want to take it away?
Yes. Silly but fun podcast. Among the numerous Godzilla-based podcasts out there, this is one of the best. Thank you. The review format of watching the movie during the podcast and then turning into a running commentary track of the film is incredibly unique and inventive, which allows for some really enjoyable banter between the hosts that's quite funny at times and insightful at others. It's exactly the kind of commentary that would occur during a party with a group of friends sitting around watching the movie, and that makes this light breezy and very laid back. Some of their antics are a little much. Their habit of badly half singing the film's theme track for an outro is grating at times.
Grating, as in GREATING.
But adds to the light spirit of the commentary of the whole and does soon become a part of the experience. Yay. All in all, any fan of the series in general should add this to the top of their list of 4G podcasts. Yes, top of the list. Thank you. The next one was Learn Things You Never Knew You Never Knew. I recommend this podcast even to the uninitiated. It's very entertaining and the hosts are very knowledgeable. I never knew there was so much to the world of Godzilla movies. I'm not even a hardcore Godzilla fan. I just came across this podcast via Twitter and downloaded a few episodes to try it out. I'm very glad I did.
Thank you guys for your reviews. Once again, if you want to give us a review through the contact page, and if you don't want to download iTunes, that's totally fine. So it's GodzillaPodcast.com, and that'll take you right to our site. Give us a contact page. Give us a note on one of our episodes. If you have an opinion about any of the previous Godzilla films, or even any of the near future films that we're going to get into, Toho monster movies movie wise, then please, let us know what you thought of the film so we can talk about it in the episode.
Yeah, reach out to us. We've already mentioned the comment on the last film, and it's enjoyable for us to have that. That's the whole reason I like doing this.
That was like a half a page of notes. It was good.
He gave us like eight specific notes. So yeah, go anyway.
The more user interaction, the better. And I feel like we've been lacking on that on this show. I mean, I have other shows and we have a lot of user interaction, so it's kind of odd that this one doesn't. Mostly because this is a commentary, so it feels kind of odd. But I feel like at the end of the commentary, that's the best time to be like talking to you guys. So if you have anything that you want to talk about on the show, please ask us a question, give us a note, go through the contact page, or give us something on our forums or on our episodes themselves on GodzillaPodcast.com.
And as always, so you don't have to worry about the giveaways being like, oh, should I wait to give one? Or, just give one, because every single entry, which I put entry in quotes, every review or the email that we receive is always going to be eligible for any giveaways, so long as you haven't already won. So just do it whenever you feel like it, and yeah, we appreciate it. It helps us because we go up in the rankings. People will find us easier, and then we'll get more interaction. It feeds on itself, Joe.
So I know neither of us loved this movie.
No. You know what?
Is it better or worse than Godzilla Raids Again / or Godzilla, or excuse me, Gigantus the Fire Monster?
Joe, there is a canyon, a gulf of difference between Raids and Fire Monster, Gargantua, whatever that movie. Gigantus the Fire Monster. When you're reading Dante's Inferno and there's the different degrees of hell, right?
All right, yeah.
There is a
Not
bottom
that I've ever
degree.
read it, but I've heard of it.
I haven't either, but I know of the different levels.
Let me tell you about climate change. Go ahead.
The bottom degree is Gigantus the Fire Monster, if we're comparing these two Godzilla films. And above that would be bad Godzilla films, above that mediocre, and then somewhat bad Godzilla films. You know what? This will never get to that degree for me of Gigantus the Fire Monster. It is contained in its own realm of terribleness.
Okay.
This movie, though, doesn't give me enough to hate. It's just an okay film. Manila's in it, and that gives me a lot to hate on. But the film itself, it's not good enough for praise, and it's not bad enough to bash. So.
I think it's a kind of a bad movie for a large part, and then there's some cool monster scenes that I liked.
Dude, we failed to mention even, and it's very strange for the film. There are no bad guys in the film, strictly speaking.
Nope. Except for the spider, who's a bad guy to Godzilla, but not really to the human characters, except for when they're trying to escape. But they're trying to escape from all the monsters. The monsters are just nature.
Yeah, exactly. It's man versus nature.
I say nature in quotes because they're irradiated nature.
Nature happens to be these giant monsters. Mm-hmm. So this is the first, and I honestly hope only Godzilla film where there isn't clear-cut bad guys, because... And there wasn't even really a clear comedic character, so I'm convincing myself currently that I like this film less and less. But it's something weird about this film. It's kind of
gaping
flimsy.
Plot holes. Some dude just like lived through the most terrible weather ever.
Yeah, without a scratch.
And the other lady, and neither of them were irradiated to be 50-foot tall people. But yet the praying mantises are real sensitive to that type of stuff.
Apparently, radiation affects insects more than humans.
Yeah. Anyway, that's odd.
That is the end. But
I got one thing I want to talk about. Go ahead.
What are we going to see this next week?
Well, I believe Shin Gojira is going to be out in theaters.
Yeah, Shin Godzilla over here. And
I'm going to be spending money I don't have on it.
Joe, I can pitch in.
You don't have to pitch in. It's fine. I have a job interview. I have 2 job interviews lined up this week, and I have never not gotten a job during an interview.
Oh, you are very charismatic.
I'm a very confident interviewer. And so I'm trying to get a crappy day job to help support my short film and, give me a $8.50 ticket to, or it's probably going to be like a $12 ticket.
Bucks, dude. It's $9.
Okay. All right.
Joe is an artiste, meaning he is starving. And
a student.
Oh, man, you're an artiste student? You ain't got nada.
No, and the degree will be completely useless when I'm done.
Well, at least you're very aware of your artistic degree, where it's going to take you.
Oh, yeah. I can get a federal job that pays okay, and I can live off that for the rest of my... If I, decided to just give up. Which
the life of a podcaster,
the
folks.
Life
let's do
a podcaster.
A podcast auteur.
I wanted to say one more thing, which I didn't get to say during the movie.
Do it.
Because it's a lot of presentism in it, because I just watched a movie this week called Grizzly Man, which some of you guys may have heard of. I was
never.
Nominated for Best Documentary Film in 2000, I want to say 4 or 5. And it's directed by Werner Herzog, and it's about this dude who for 5 summers out of 13, he would go into Alaska and live with the grizzly bears.
Wait, 5 summers out of 13? What does that mean?
I mean, out of 13 summers that he went to live with the grizzly bears, he filmed himself and the bears for 5 summers.
Oh, wow.
And then, of course, was dispatched by a grizzly bear one day, and he gets up close and personal, and he talks about how all the bears are his friends and stuff like that. And there's a very interesting note by Werner Herzog, which he's kind of a crazy German filmmaker.
Oh yeah,
I think
he's known for that.
Yeah. There's a movie called Burden of Dreams where he's filming a fictional film about Fitzcarraldo.
Yeah.
And he is in the jungle, and he makes a note that he thinks that the jungle is this terrible monstrosity.
So
that,
the jungle's like a personified.
The jungle he feels is something that's not good or evil. It just is a harsh environment that is brutal.
Honestly, I want to say that
nature is that way to Werner Herzog.
See jungle nowadays.
And this guy, this grizzly man guy that he has the footage from for this movie, he made a note that this grizzly man, who of course died from the bear, he always thought of nature as a beautiful, wonderful thing. And every time he saw violence in nature, he was like really put off by it. And so when I'm seeing, the praying mantises like poking holes in little
freshly hatched manila.
Yeah, freshly shat manila.
You know what? I wasn't going to say it, Joe, but I had a discussion with you because I was going to write a small radio drama for this at the beginning. We think that the real origins of Manila, I personally believe, is that Godzilla took a dump one day and Manila came out. And that was going to be in this skit. The scientists were going to have created a machine where they could interpret Godzilla to human speech and Godzilla-related creatures, so they could hear, Godzilla and his little Manila buddy. Who knows his relation to Godzilla? But then Godzilla was going to smother him at the end of that radio drama in the Warm Red Lake, and we were going to get rid of Manila forever. Of course, he will recur in these films, but you just keep saying shat out, so I feel like we need the explanation for that.
I only said shat once. Go
on, Grizzly Man.
So I thought that I sort of saw that. I saw that in this version of nature, in this Godzilla movie, nature is not this kind, wonderful, perfect thing.
No, it's violent.
Nature is cruel and brutal and violent and exact. And
in that way, we're justified in changing the weather, correct? Sympathy for our heroes.
Why not? I thought that was an interesting sort of parallel to the movie I saw. Dude, I have not. I kid you not. I watched that movie. Did I watch that yesterday or the day before? And all I've been thinking about is Grizzly Man. It is one of the best movies I know this is a Godzilla podcast. It has just barely gotten back onto Netflix. It was in my queue before.
Okay.
And my gosh, it is an amazing film. It is an amazing film.
Well, it is a Godzilla podcast, but Joe is a movie guy.
I've never seen a better documentary than this.
Oh, so
ever.
it's shot documentary style. It's not supposed to be
the
like
guy is filming himself,
Yeah.
and then this is about Werner Herzog's sort of his narration on it, and then Werner Herzog meets with the coroner, and he meets with an ex-girlfriend of the guy, and then he talks about him and his girlfriend as they were
When
out
did this
there.
film take place? Just I'm curious now.
The guy died, I think, in 2003.
Oh, so
and
relatively recently.
the video, there was never any video of it, but they did have the camera on, and the audio of their deaths is on the camera.
Their deaths?
Their deaths.
Wait, I thought it was just him.
The grizzly man.
But so
Oh,
he died.
he had a girlfriend that was with him for the last 2 summers. Sorry.
So she was killed as
She
well?
died too.
Oh.
And there's this amazing scene, guys. I know this has nothing to do with Godzilla, but it is one of the best scenes I have ever seen in my life, fiction or real. There's a scene where he's like, okay, there was no video on it, but the woman who got the equipment from, she was given everything that this guy left behind, his watch and the camera that had the footage on it with the tape. And now there's nothing on it because I guess the girlfriend was taking out the camera to get the bear that was coming into their camp, but didn't take the lens cap off. She didn't have time before they were attacked. But she did press record and the sound is there. And they were like, okay, this woman has refused to listen to the sound. And then Werner Herzog just like plugs in some earphones and you just watch over the shoulder of Werner Herzog himself wearing the headphones, listening to the deaths of these people, which you don't hear as the audience member. But then you see the reaction on the lady's face as she's hearing her ex-boyfriend die, she's seeing Werner Herzog's reaction to him listening to their deaths. And it is one of the most powerful moments I have ever seen.
Because it's real.
Ever. And it is real. And then he takes out the headphones. He's like, you should never listen to this. No one should ever hear this. And it is just like, ugh. And there's a million other amazing moments in that movie. I've never seen, it has been a long time since I've seen a movie that has floored me like that.
Huh.
And I'm telling you, man, I have to watch it again. It's
Movie recommendations from Joe?
Yeah, movie recommendation from Joe. If you want to see real violence, there's 2 grizzly bears that he films a fight up close and personal with 2 grizzly bears fighting over territory, and that's real, and it's brutal.
Since you certainly weren't satiated for violence enough from this film,
No,
go on
fact,
to watch The
if
Grizzly
Manila's
Man.
head were chopped off, I might feel better about this movie.
And we're watching Shin Godzilla next week. Not too much more in Godzilla news, honestly. Not that I know.
No, probably not.
Caleb Craig,
What about him?
he pointed out that there are Godzilla comics, which I don't think I've ever mentioned in this podcast, but there are. There's one going
exist?
on right now called Godzilla Rage Across Time, which currently in I want to say it's volume 2 or the second one. He's fighting Roman gladiators or something like that. I don't know. It's just cool. Godzilla. And of course, there's always been Godzilla in Hell or Godzilla something like that. He goes to hell. And
Of course.
yeah, why not? Because that would be artistically brilliant. I mean, just the spectacle of Godzilla down in fire and brimstone. So yeah, there's those. That's worthy of mention. But aside from that, really not much news.
Yeah, I don't know. I still don't know if we're gonna watch the television show.
I'm just gonna say no.
No. I'm not going to do commentaries on it at the very least. I made that mistake.
You're talking
with
about the
another
Hanna-Barbera, not the 1998
Both
adaptations.
I mean, if we do one, we have to do the other.
So let's not do either. We'll see.
Okay. All right.
But the other thing was there's just a small mention in a new teaser or something for Kong Skull Island where somebody took a picture of a still from the trailer. Monarch, the organization that tracked Godzilla through this legendary 2014 Godzilla film, the Legendary Films one. It's an organization that apparently tracked Godzilla throughout the years. It's just called Monarch, and they do make an appearance as the shady organization in Kong Skull Island. It was kind of hinted by fans. They thought John Goodman's character in Kong Skull Island is going to be part
they didn't
of Monarch.
think it was King Kong?
They thought that John Goodman, no. They thought that John Goodman was part of this organization that shows up in the 2014. But we have more ties.
I thought John Goodman was playing King Kong. I swear.
He's been losing weight, man. I don't know that
sometimes he is skinnier and it's weird.
and he is in these films. He wasn't
John
that
Goodman's
hefty in
wonderful.
Cloverfield Lane.
Gosh, I love John Goodman.
He's a great actor.
As much as I think it would just take some makeup and he could be King Kong. Like, just put some fur on
Oh,
him.
Joe, this is about the time we need to sign off the podcast because this is devolving. All right. Thank you for everything you've given us.
It's
We
for
like
laughs.
this podcast.
It's for laughs. You guys
Joe.
can laugh. I'm not being serious.
But I love John Goodman so much. He's such
I
a
love
teddy
John
bear.
Goodman too. I remember like Argo, probably the most recent John Goodman movie I've seen. I watched Always recently. And that was terrible. But
I watched Trouble with the Curve, and I didn't like him in that.
that movie's kind of mediocre.
Very mediocre.
I love watching him in Argo, and he's like the special effects guy.
I need
in
to
the
see
movie
Argo.
industry. And he's like, he can teach a Reese's monkey to be a director in a day. And he just says all these hilarious things. He's so good at that movie.
That's the Ben Affleck starring in and
Yeah,
directed
that's
film,
the
correct?
Ben
The one
Affleck
that
movie.
won all the accolades, or at least was nominated
it
for.
won
him.
Best Picture. Yeah.
Awesome. All right.
All right. Okay. All
We're
right.
gonna our outro, and it was also our intro provided to us by Mecha G.
Yeah, check him
Mecha
out.
G's got some stuff that's going to be going on
Godzilla
probably later on next year. I talked to the creator of this band, and he's an awesome guy, really supportive, and support them. Check out their Bandcamp page, which we'll link to on our website. If you go to see the podcast on there through Libsyn.
Whatever the episode is, it'll be on there.
Yeah, so Mecha G, thank you,
man.
providing our intro and outro, and
We'll
good
see
night.
you guys next week. Good night. What if they're listening to this in the morning, Drew?
Good day to you, podcast listeners.